everything you see here, they created internally.
So this is a brand document that captures everything from the look and feel to the way that the menus are going to read, the packaging,
even the renderings. So these renderings are pretty decent, right? And so getting these from the get-go is the perfect scenario, right? Because you like, oh, okay, you know what they like already, right? So it's like I said, it's the perfect scenario. But you always can make that scenario for yourself. You can make it if you just dig deep enough, right? I'm showing this because it's an easier document to just go through the information that's there, which should be the questions that you ask, regardless of whether there's a document or not, right? You have to know the history of the project. You have to know the location, transportation, how many people go there or don't go there. Is that the challenge? Things of that nature. And just to end your question, is all of the above, right? It depends on how the client comes. The client can come to you with like, I don't know what I need to do, and then you do the whole thing for them. Or like these two clients, we already have all this stuff that we worked on for 2 years, and then we work with their marketing department on that. So it's really how the client, it depends on the client and the type of project.
And you bring people to a marketing center, and that film is what you show them to really wow them. Maybe you shouldn't just blast it out and let everybody see it, because then they miss part of that story. Everything that we do is meant to be experienced and in some cases presented by people that are trying to sell something. Our stuff doesn't sell. As much as we like to think it, our stuff alone doesn't sell anything. It needs to be part of a presentation, a package. So I think that we sometimes, like I said, we try to get people to not just misuse a lot of these. So we're like, okay, well, let's do a little teaser of this film. Maybe we'll do it for free, so that you can maybe blast that out, or play it somewhere, and then people are going to be like, oh, what's that about? They're going to pick up a phone, or they're going to be driven to a marketing center, and then they get to experience the full thing. But you have them there. I mean, most of these transactions that we deal with, they're personal transactions. Like, there needs to be somebody who's trying to get you to sign a huge, $10 million lease for the next 10 years. So I think that it's a great question, and it's something that everybody here should be thinking of. It's like, my renderings, how are you going to use these renderings? Because are they going to go on a brochure? Or a lot of our clients don't even know. They're like, I don't know. How should we use your renderings?
Yeah, to avoid that, back to your question, and it's perfect that you asked the question, because that's actually the next topic on the conversation is establish the end use of every single thing you do, right? And like Rodrigo said, clients sometimes don't even know how they're going to use things.
This is back in the days when people were spending a lot of money on crazy things to sell real estate.
When we had like 6 months to do an animation.
Yeah. So this was a film that we did that all you need to know about the film is that the client agreed to have a 50-foot tall naked woman painted silver in the film, which
I'll get to it.
That doesn't happen anymore. So these are slightly more kind of artistic. There's a vibe to these storyboards. This is actually the work of that guy that I was mentioning. He's great with characters. This was a character-driven film. He draws action really well, and he really gives you a sense. He's a comic book artist, right? So he really gives you a sense of the sequence, the flow, camera angle. So a lot of what you see here is work that we sat down with him. We talked about these ideas. We didn't have a lot of preconceived notions about cameras, and so he himself figured out a lot of these cameras, and we ended up shooting almost exactly what he crafted for us. So that collaboration was pretty exciting.
So that's again.
And we are not going to show this film.
The point, you can look at it online. The point being, that in a document like this one, you need to back up your ideas, your chicken scratch, with a little bit more, right? In the case of the real storyboards, it's almost not necessary, or it's not as necessary. You can still have it there, but the story is told in a much clearer way. There's already an intention for each shot. There's already a little bit of a mood to it that that the client can relate to. So you notice that these two don't have any like precedent imagery or like board, like mood board page at the beginning, like the city point one and the other two storyboards. So a third example that I want to show you guys is the CG storyboard. And this, you know, I have two of them. And I'll start with the easy one. It's a museum in Guatemala for the Mayan history, right? So we already had a very good 3D model at this point of the building. We were already doing renderings for it. And the client, these architects over under with these partners, there were a couple of other architecture firms involved, I don't remember their names right now, were super cool young guys willing to do whatever we wanted to do with both the renderings and the film. Unfortunately, the film has not moved forward, but it's a good example of what you can do once you have already your assets in there. And then it's not, you know, I'm not as good at drawing like Rodrigo is, so this is the way I do them.
Wow, that's a low blow.
No, dude, come on. They're good drawings. So you have to, you know, you do your research, your mood board inspiration, and you know, very straightforward. You start, you know, grabbing your basic model, V-Ray, sun and sky, some forest pack in there, and then start, you know, putting some cameras together to explain the whole thing. A little brief explanation at the bottom, and that's pretty much it.
I always use the chapter, like the children's chapter book analogy. I mean, it's a perfect way to present, particularly if you're going to hand it off to somebody, to kind of walk them through. I mean, some people love the visuals, and ultimately the visuals are the thing that you're really selling. But a little bit of an explanation about, you know, it could be goals, it could be an explanation of the movement or the activity that you hope to capture. I mean, it's trying to leave as little information unanswered for the client, but still not give away that sense of mystery, which in this case, you know, it was about this beautiful building being carved out of the landscape.
And so each time we turn these on, we're going through and just checking for balances, which is why we turn them on like one at a time, make sure it looks correct, and then move on, or else it can be hard to tweak, you know, multiple lights at the same time, see what's affecting what. Then we go through and turn on the garage, and they have some uplighting over here to get some ivy. And then we have the lights up front. We wanted to get some nice catch on the grass there, which I think turned out pretty cool in the final. And then the tree lights. And so one of the things I did for this one was make use of the V-Ray Light Select. It's one of my favorite elements. So I have a V-Ray Light Select for the trees themselves, so we can go through and mess with that later. Also did that for the downlights in Hayworth. And then the next part was the atmosphere. So this is the V-Ray fog pass that we just did in a separate file. I wanted to do a fog pass here instead of a Z-depth because I wanted to get the all the lights basically, instead of just you know, actual fog. And I wanted to make sure that it faded out as it went up. So this is actually a really simple setup. It's pretty much default. I just checked on use or bounce GI. I could set it up right now. It's so simple. Where are you at? Environment. V-Ray environment fog. So I just did the fog distance something far, so like 500, 600. And then fog height, like 40 feet. Scatter bounces, 100. Make sure all lights are on. Super simple setup. Just do it in your own file, and then you can save out the V-Ray atmosphere element, which holds the alpha in it. It's really nice. Okay, so now that we have this open, I'll show you the light material for the ceilings. So I got a lot of warmth in there, and then I just painted in. So I painted in the warmth on these lights down here. And then punched it a little bit in areas over here, just to get, the nice warmth, our warm hot spots. A little balancing, little vignette, and we're done. That's it for that PSD.
Yes, one question. So basically, you took the image from the modeling until you finished it in Photoshop, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and is there anybody in your office who takes care of all the images, so they are consistent?
No, we powwow after we do a set. So like Dan and I and Nika will take all three of our images that we split out from a single project and look at them together and make sure that they work with each other. Another thing we do, or when Carlos and I used to work together, he's over there, a lot more frequently, is we look at them all in Bridge and do those final consistency corrections in Bridge itself so that we can see everything together.
UV offsets, you're actually controlling, they're actually flipped and varied in a bunch of different ways. So the next step then is to take this particular thing and figure out how we can actually drive more, right? So how we can take that particular map and add maybe 4 or 5 different variations of the texture or the color. So to do this, I'm actually going to pop into Slate and show how I set this up with some linked hierarchies under Slate. So I can eventually then add additional maps later on. So one of the things I want to take out of my texture here is I want to instance all my cropping placements. So I'm going to pull out all of these into Bezier floats really quick. So they'll store that information. And then one thing I always do, I always set my blur as close as I can get to 0. So that's another one that I always pull out. So I'll pull out those 5 for now. And let's say we actually wanted to put a bump map into this as well. Again, in Slate, you can just shift and drag, and it'll instance all of those controllers. So our crop and our diffuse and our crop and our will be bump map will all be the same. So we can then just link in our bump. So you'll see that our bump is in the same location. And then we can just drive that up here into your main map. So now once we have this set up, we need to look at an approach on how we can actually set up some material variation. So to do that, I'm going to copy this material, and I'm going to put it into a multi-sub material. And we'll open up this multi-sub. I'm going to set the number to 2 right now. And we're going to, so this multi-sub gives us 2 different materials. And then what I need to add to make this work on the Mac side is I need to add a modifier called material by element. And there's 2 different ways to use this. One is a random variation based on a number distribution. The other one is to actually figure out how you want those materials distributed across the geometry. So I will take this now and apply it. There won't be any change to this scene at the moment because my second material is still the same material. So let's show that map. And what I can do then is come into this material, and I can zoom in here on one of my other little 8-bit color graphics. And you'll see that now, once that crop is updated, and again, because we copied that, the secondary crop of the bump is also brought to the bump map because we've linked those parameters. we now have different variation. And so now if we wanted to list frequency, I did a light and a dark. So we could say that we want significantly less dark materials. We can tone that down. And then, correspondingly, you need to manage adding the other one up. I guess I've never checked if this automatically defaults to 100 at some point. I always make sure I do the math so there's no leftover pieces. And then quickly, just with what we've shown again, dragging our whole layer stack, pulling down, and I grabbed a little too much there. Let's deselect him.
And seeing if it was worth it for us to carry our Kino set, or if we were better off with just using reflectors. And so here in the first test, we have just sunlight without any fill light. And then if you watch on the right side, or on Alex's left side, you'll see a fill come in a little bit. OK. And these are, at first, just 10-second clips. Yeah, it's playing. So.
The beginning, yeah.
Yep.
We need to censor it.
Alex is a native Bostonian, so he curses a lot. We have to cut him out. So that's without fill light again. And then there are two different lights in the Kino set. There's a cool light and a warm light. So we were trying to figure out what worked best outside. And we actually figured out that the cool light did. And now this is with reflectors.
Stop for audio sync. And on this take, we decided to harness the power of the sun. 7.3 million miles away or something like that is where this is coming from. And we get the card at about a 45-degree angle or so right now. The soft white diffuse side of the bounce card. Hey, we're shooting here! We're shooting here! MBTA. So anything else we need to tell them, Chris?
So
and that's now it's with the card removed. And the card's back. Card's gone. Okay, now we're going to the shiny side. I think the technical term is it's literally blinding me. I can't see shit. It's gone now, and it's back. It's back. We couldn't possibly suggest our interview subjects to this.
So what we learned from that is that the Kinos, if you have access to a plug, they did a great job. We didn't think that they would give us any fill light, but they actually did a really great job of giving us a nice even fill light. But also we learned that reflectors they'll give you way more. And so if you're trying to do light and quick, reflectors are still a great option.
So Vasily also happens to be a music video editor, so that helps. And I think we approach, so a film, when a director works on a long film, they give it to somebody to score, right? And so they do inject the music and a lot of the sound after the fact, and then they record Foley and all that stuff. But we have to approach our movies as a short form kind of music video, and where the music is integral to the initial sort of story even that you pitch. So there's two very different ways of thinking about it, and in our case, because most of what we're producing is anywhere from 60 seconds to 3 minutes and 5 minutes, it lands more in that sweet spot of a short form music video. So I think a lot of the things that you'll see here are techniques that apply mostly to that. So we watch a lot of film, and obviously for other things, like cinematography. But when it comes to editorial, it's often music videos, long-form commercials, where the music is sort of established either immediately because in a music video it's driving the story, or in a commercial it's informing something because it needs to kind of capture somebody's attention right away. So that's the approach, and it helps that this guy actually does music videos himself on the side, and can speak can speak that language.
I wanted to try something really fast, which is I've got 3 tracks, and I instantly know for each track what that would be the best what client would appreciate the most. And so if we're looking at luxury residential, if we're looking at someone who's trying to sell office space and someone who has high-end retail, I'd love if you guys could try to figure out, of these 3 tracks, who wants which track, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so we'll do a little trivia game here.
Little trivia game. Any ideas? Yes. So, I mean, that's what I always go for when I'm trying to find a song, not to be
Can
so
you
obvious,
repeat
but
this?
It should
Can you repeat what the answer was?
Oh, I'm sorry. The answer was luxury residential. Because while not being so obvious that it's cheesy, you should have an emotional feeling and a connection to the type of project you're selling.
It's dramatic. It's and Grant, this is we're grossly generalizing a lot of this. There may be high-end residential in Miami that wants like club music, but the idea here is that after you do this enough times, you have a sense of what kind of music you're going to go. I mean, a lot of what we do is stock libraries, right? So, and there's millions of songs out there, so you have to immediately edit yourself so that the search doesn't become something that's going to take you weeks to do. And a lot of times we'll go through this exercise internally before we even do storyboards or things like that, so that we can use the music to inspire camera movement and things of that nature. Any ideas?
Actually, that's what I would use. Oh, yep. Yes,
No,
Carlos?
Carlos, you can't answer.
It could be retail. It would depend on, I think, what type of retail.
No, I'm kidding.
What were you going to say? Oh, you were going to answer? So that would be something that I think for a lot of our clients would be great for the corporate world, because it's happy, because it's inspirational, and
it's not corporate, right? So the trick there is a lot of our corporate stuff, like if you watch corporate videos, they tend to be very dry. And so this is a way to kind of take them a little bit away from their comfort zone without going crazy like maybe the next one that you're going to play.
So this is the type of song I always try to pitch for every movie. And Rodrigo and Carlos only let me do this sometimes. But this is obviously going to evoke feelings of a catwalk and fashion shows. So that's what we would use for a high-end fashion piece. Quick editing, and anyway, really simple exercise, but as far as music is concerned, I think it's vitally important. Like Rodrigo said, I do edit music videos, so maybe I care about that more than most editors, but when you
have you had any opportunity, or is there any specific situation where you see the value of original music?
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I guess we can answer that question right now. So one of the examples that we have here, and it comes up literally every other project that we do in New York. If you guys do work with New York developers or brokers, they're very egotistical. They're New Yorkers, right? And they love New York. They love New York, right? So 9 times out of 10, we'll sit in a room and we'll talk about music, and they'll want this song.
Designed to accommodate 40 million passengers annually, this environmentally conscious project will parallel the dramatic projected growth of Abu Dhabi's population in the years to come. An inspiring landscape guides you towards the airport's main entrance. An iconic structure over 50 meters in height is a captivating sight and a prelude to an exciting journey. With one of the largest spanning arches in the world, the vast uninterrupted entrance space with its exquisite detailing is a welcoming symbol for hospitality and generosity.
Here for a second. So a lot of the voiceover, we actually help write the voiceover, is literally telling you, right? So it's like verbatim captioning what you're seeing on the screen. Some of it is, you know, augmenting what you're hearing, like they're telling you it's 50 meters. Okay, that's great. We pitched this movie initially with, it's a huge airport in Abu Dhabi. Their current airport, you know, is and was and is crappy, and you know, it doesn't work for them. So they wanted to sort of sell the drama, right? And we were like, okay, well, let's think about what happens at airports, right? And most people hate going to the airport, so let's focus on like this peaceful experience, this really relaxing, seamless sort of experience. So we pitched them a creative that took somebody who was arriving and somebody who was leaving, departing, and we talked about creating this sort of juxtaposition of both of those sequences happening at the same time. And at some point in the film, maybe they cross paths, right? So they were like, yeah, but no. Let's do a walkthrough, and somebody's going to narrate what people are seeing, and so that's fine. You know, it's when the sheik says something and he wants something, that's what you have to do, right? So this is sort of our own internal, again, same shots. We didn't produce anything different. Our own internal rendition of capturing those two moments that are much more interesting and much more personal. The architecture is still there, it's still beautiful, but with a different music track and a different sort of configuration, arrangement of shots, you sort of start to see how the story becomes more personal. So just a different way to kind of approach the same assets and create something that has a very different feel. One feels more like a promotional, commercial sort of thing, and the other one feels more like something that you would show an actual visitor to say, hey, this airport is going to do everything for you. It's going to feel seamless. It's not really. We all know what airports are like, but it's about trying to capture that effortless sort of relaxed feel.
So you've seen, you know, we've showed you pretty much for this project, we showed you planning of shoots, of B-roll, of storyboarding and concepts and stuff like that. So this is pretty much the final film with and without the color correction. I'll keep it small because it doesn't play that well. So there we go.